Could have been outside again looking. But anyways, I'm going to take off. I'll let you guys do your thing. But there you go. I showed your audience the sneak preview.
No, thanks, Gray, and thanks for explaining that other case for us. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one. See you later.
Oops, Raees, what's happening, man?
Hey guys, sorry I'm late, but
that's okay.
Justice requires patience.
Hey, no worries, man. So
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for waiting on me. It's Phoenix traffic can be unpredictable. Ladies and gents, do not plan to be in a podcast at peak of traffic when you are across the city. That's just the lesson I've learned. I appreciate you guys.
No, we appreciate you, man, and you're worth waiting on. It actually gave us a chance to kind of brief the case before we get into the legal side of it. So now everybody's kind of familiar with what actually happened with this young lady. She left a party. She ended up driving off into the water. She was missing for a really long time. I actually have the court documents, but before we do that, for people that missed our last one or doesn't know who you are, go ahead and just introduce yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Yes, so I am a co-founding partner of RM Warner Law. We are an internet and corporate law firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I happen to be wearing the shirt. This was not planned, so don't hate me for this, but that's the firm name. It's the logo. So yeah, I've been doing defamation law for 16 years, and my focus is on internet defamation, which is a different animal than your standard defamation. And it's because the forensics are more complicated. You have much more complicated fact scenarios. You have to deal with the viral nature of a false campaign. And look, it's a First Amendment practice just as much as it is a defamation practice. So we're defending people who are speakers of the truth, content creators like yourself, Gary, and people in that industry. We represent everyone from, the kid in his parents' room with the microphone all the way to A-list celebrities and people who are on the cover of magazines. And I love what I do. I picked it. It didn't pick me. We practice in all 50 states, even though I'm licensed in Arizona, because we get admitted as necessary and partner with local attorneys. So I've had a chance to litigate across the country and get a flavor for different jurisdictions and kind of see what judges and lawyers are like around the country on this complex issue of defamation. And I love what I do. I wouldn't do anything else.
Well, since you mentioned that you're in Phoenix, I think it's fair to go ahead and address what will come up. Are you in any way affiliated, talking to, or any other way affiliated in any way with TPUSA or any affiliate of them?
Other than the $1 million check they sent me? No, I'm kidding. That's no, 100% not. 100% not affiliated with TPUSA. Not at all.
And just so you know, too, I did get a email today from Candace's lawyer. I have a preservation order, which
beautiful.
We may dive into that. I don't even know where she's going with that. I mean, obviously, I got nothing to hide. She can subpoena my phone and have at it. I don't know how that's going to protect her from the claims that she made against Brian Harpole, but it is what it is. I do want to go ahead and knock out this question because this has been brought up a lot. And I think I know the answer to, but we'll let the professional answer it. The idea of a class action lawsuit against Candace has come up a lot for defamation. Is that something that is a thing? I've never heard of a class action defamation. And if it is a thing, like what would be the parameters that would justify such a lawsuit?
A class action defamation case. That's an interesting question because I can't think of a fact pattern off the top of my head that would warrant 100 class or less even of plaintiffs that are similarly situated that were all defamed, right? Because remember, for a defamation case, the core of it is reputational harm. So I suppose if you could have a large swath of plaintiffs that were all similarly harmed by a publisher, maybe on a news channel or by a YouTuber, but that's a lot of people. And then you have questions about how everyone's reputations were similarly harmed, right? So when you think of class action, you think of usually mass torts, these pharmaceutical company type lawsuits. And that's because everybody generally is treated the same because their damages are similar. The defendant is the same, the target's the same, and the result is the same. And so there's actually some rigid requirements to develop a class. So I don't think so. I don't see what now.
Well,
You
here
can
I'll give you the hypothetical that's been presented to me multiple times, and that is, for instance, you know, she said all of these lieutenant colonels and colonels were in this building plotting this assassination against Charlie Kirk. That's kind of where I think a lot of this comes. And then the other thing, you know, whether it's me and other multiple people that she's kind of went after, whether that even reaches a level of defamation is kind of another thing altogether. But that's kind of what she's talking about. And then I've also heard people say, well, why doesn't the military sue Candace? I've never heard of the government suing someone for defamation, but I could be wrong. I don't know how all that works. So that's where people's heads are at. Like, hey, she said these people were in this building that are plotting this murder against Charlie Kirk.
Let me say this. You can have a non-class multi-plaintiff lawsuit. I've done that before. You know, you can have 5, you can have 10 plaintiffs, you can have 20 plaintiffs. I've had a case where as many as nearly 30 plaintiffs. It was a non-class. So people often mistake class actions with multi-plaintiff or even mass tort. So the answer to the question is many people can sue if you have the same claim against the same person. So in the event that, let's say hypothetically, Candace Owens defamed, 30 people, all 30 of them could bring claims in the same lawsuit, or they could bring them separately, in which case the claims would probably get consolidated into a single case. So
makes sense. Perfect.
On the government question, governments don't typically pursue people unless it's to recover their own money. They're not going to sue a private actor for damages. They have better things to do, like run a country. But what they would probably be inclined to do, individuals can certainly bring claims in their individual capacity. We've seen that before, right? We've seen, we've seen many examples of politicians, even presidents, bring lawsuits or be sued. But the government as an entity doesn't necessarily have to file suit. So if people are asking about, well, what about the individuals that Candace named? If it's false, if it's defamatory, and there's injury to reputation, they could certainly bring a lawsuit separately. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is I having talked with you and other lawyers at this point, I realize like there's some pretty high bars to reach the point of defamation. And I think like simple slander, people think, oh, well, you said this thing about me and it's not true. I can sue you because it's not true. It's a little bit more complicated than that, right?
It's way more complicated than that. And again, I am a First Amendment lawyer as much as I am a keep people honest, don't defame people lawyer. Not everything is a tort. Not every statement causes reputational harm. Hurt feelings are not a basis to sue someone for defamation. And, to the extent we get into the case we're all really here for with this YouTuber, you need to really show reputational harm. That's the crux of a defamation case. Just because you didn't like what somebody said, if somebody calls you an idiot or a moron or a piece of shit in more colorful language, you can't sue for defamation over those things. It's a false statement of fact that causes reputational harm, that identifies a specific person or is specific enough that reasonable minds can put together the puzzle of who we're talking about. So even if you don't name a name, sometimes people think, well, if I say a false statement of fact and I harm someone's reputation, if I don't name drop, as they say, I could skirt past this. But they use all the other identifiers. And if reasonable people can conclude who you're talking about, you're not saved from liability.
Gotcha. So I started going through this lawsuit earlier. I don't know if there's a particular spot that you would like to start in. Obviously, I think giving everybody the framework at the beginning of this is pretty good. But I highlighted it just, and again, I think I got about 12, 15 pages into this. But Kylie Rodney disappeared on August 6, 2022. Some of the big things here, Ryan Upchurch began posting about Kylie Rodney on YouTube on August 13, 2022. At this time, the whereabouts of Kylie Rodney were unknown. In these videos, Upchurch offered outlandish theories of the truth of what happened to Kylie Rodney. Upchurch initially theorized that a person named Ronnie who was a caller to a YouTube show hosted by YouTube, whatever this is, Iced Mel, was a red herring and a made-up character. In the comment reply to his video, Red Flag Ronnie 2, YouTuber user posted, "Dude, be careful. You're going to get sued for slander, for real." Upchurch replied, "They can slander these nuts." I'm sure that went over well with the jury.
Yeah, the these nuts response tells you everything you need to know.
In a video posted on August 20th, Upchurch falsely claimed that the various other YouTube crime would-be sleuths, including the YouTube personalities, whatever this is, and Ice Mel, were responsible for or somehow involved in the death of Kylie Rodney. In the video titled Exactly What I Think Happened to Kylie Rodney, Upchurch suggested that this person and this person were responsible for the disappearance of Kylie Rodney, stating, "If you look at the timeline of Kylie being there, Ronnie's seeing that her and this person having a video of the party, isn't it possible that they took her, which is why no kids seen this? And if that's what happened, that would explain what Ishmael is acting crazy and being like, look, everyone, Ronnie's real." So here we have a classic example of like there being an information gap, and then we're just filling it in with speculation. But it's amazing how quickly that'll be kind of regurgitated as fact. You know what I mean? And we've seen that definitely with the Candace Owens case.
Can I make a kind of an opening statement just about,
Absolutely.
let me say this. This case is a warning shot for true crime content creators and anyone that's covering news, period. So anybody who's listening or in the future, when you watch the clips of this, if you are in the true crime or recap game, you have to study this case. And here's why. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to criticize an investigation. You're allowed to criticize the federal government, the state government, the police. You can even speculate to a degree, okay? But when you tell millions of people that a dead teenager and her grieving family are fake, or that the family is running a GoFundMe scam, and this is a family who just lost their daughter who drowned, which drowning is one of the worst ways to go.
Yeah.
When you say things that are a false statement of a fact, you've crossed into accusations. You now have liability. I'll be the first one to support a content creator. Like I said, I represent many who have opinions, strong ones, opinions that you may not agree with, I may not agree with, but I support the right to have an opinion. When you make factual accusations, just remember that a jury is going to potentially have a chance to decide if you conveyed a false statement of fact that's worthy of getting smacked with the verdict on. And in this case, Gary, they spoke so loudly on this. And for people who don't practice law, who aren't in courtrooms, who don't analyze cases, and I'm sorry I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm giving you a...
Oh, this is great, actually.
For people who don't know and just see the damages figure, let me just say this. A Tennessee jury made a decision that what Ryan Upchurch said was not only defamation, but was extremely, extremely injurious. It was harmful. It was emotionally distressing. It was reckless, even. And there were many counts other than defamation. I don't even think the defamation claim was the best one. I actually think the emotional distress claim was the better claim in this case. And we can talk about that. But the jury said $17.5 million in compensatory damages. What that means is to make you whole, we are going to pay you this much money. This is how much we think you deserve to be compensated. That's not to punish Ryan Upchurch. That's to say, this is how much you've demonstrated you should be entitled to be compensated. Then the jury came back and says, when it went into, so there was a, the damages phase is typically split into two phases. The case moved into punitive damages. And the jury said, guess what, dude? We don't like you. And that's when they delivered $500,000 in punitive damages. Punitive damages are hard to get. I've gotten punitive damages before. And even in a bench trial where a judge knows when somebody's dicking around and shouldn't be. The jury didn't like this guy. And $500,000 is, while it's not a huge punitive award, $18 million is. So they sent a massive message here. So what I want listeners and people watching this, even if you're not a practitioner, to understand is this is not a normal jury verdict. And plaintiff's lawyers, hats off to, I think it's Chris Smith, who is trial counsel for a plaintiff. They do personal injury work. Great trial lawyers. He did a marvelous job. And so I just want to frame it that way. And Gary, I feel like you and I sort of predicted the future a little bit. Here's why I'm saying this. Last time I was on, how long ago was that? Was that last week?
A week and a half ago, something like that.
I feel like it was just yesterday.
Yep.
Last time I was on, I made an analogy to Alex Jones's case. You remember that? The Candace Owens?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The judge in this case, in the Upchurch case, made the same analogy in his orders during the final days of the jury trial. Why I'm saying that is because the judge and certainly the jury understood that conspiracy has a limitation, bro. False accusations are not the same as a general opinion on a conspiracy. And you're entitled to say how you think she died, the girl, Kylie Rodney. But what Alex Jones, for those who know, Alex Jones got hit with a massive judgment,
1.6 billion.
Jury came back and said, we don't like that you said Sandy Hook was fake. It was a psyop. It was a false flag operation, that these families were just playing along and that nobody really lost their lives. And I mean, again, you don't F around with death. That's another strong message. When you're talking about lives, again, very good analogy to Candace Owens, right? And what's being said. You don't F around with how people die and personal accusations that somebody was involved with death. That's up there. You know, that's aside from accusing someone of murder, right? The loss of life always carries a heavy burden. And juries, just imagine, you're sitting there. Have you ever served on a jury before?
I haven't. I'm in the middle of a jury duty, whatever. Like I'm on call right now. It's
Okay.
funny, for the first time ever.
So, and I'm curious if your watchers, your listeners in the chat, how many of them have served on a jury trial before? So here's my point. You have people who are from every cross section of society who've already been scrutinized to some degree by both sides of the lawyers. They're sitting down and they're listening to a story. They have to leave their job, leave their home. They have to come check in. It's early. They have to miss lunch or eat a very nasty lunch. They don't have access to all the coffee and water that you can have at home. They're listening to a story. And the story goes, by the time it gets to trial, it's very different than the complaint we read, right? You have a lot of discovery, you have testimony, you have documents, depositions, videos. And they're listening and they're saying, we're here to decide if this guy, Ryan Upchurch, is allowed to say that the family of Kylie Rodney made this all up. And this is in the town that she died in. What an insane thing to think that you can go to trial and win on. Now, that's my personal perspective, okay? Now, there's another view, which is, well, Raees, that's the whole point of being a YouTuber. I should be able to say outlandish and crazy things. And I'm going to say the law doesn't support that. The law says there are limitations to crazy things that you can say on YouTube. And here is a perfect example of that. And the fact that the Alex Jones case is how we got to this conversation point. The fact that the Alex Jones verdict was referenced here tells you what people thought. They thought this was a gigantic crock of shit that did not deserve protection. They did not think that this guy had any right to say any of the gross things that he ultimately said about Kylie Rodney's family. And some people don't know. I know you have the complaint pulled up there, but so Daniel Rodney, Kylie's father, plaintiff 1. Plaintiff 2, correct me if I'm wrong, it was David Robertson, who is her grandfather. Let's scroll up.
Yep.
Plaintiff. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep, right there, plaintiff.
David Rodney
Yep.
and Daniel Rodney. Yep.
Yep, perfect. So the jury said, now I'm going backwards from damages. The jury said, you know what? Dad should get $6.5 million for reputational harm and emotional distress. And I didn't have a chance to. I'm sure we could get the verdict forms and search online, generally public, to see what boxes the jury checked for, damages. They gave $11 million to David Robertson, her grandfather, interestingly enough, he got more damages than the dad. And what that tells us is the jury was extremely sympathetic to the emotions of the family. That's what it tells us. Because generally, granddad, I don't know how old David Robertson was, but when you're like 80 years old, unless you're the CEO of a publicly traded company, your reputation, if you will, is not generally worth, because what's your reputational loss worth? They're kind of looking at end of life. I hate to say it that way, but that's how juries think and they can be told. So bottom line is, this case is an amazing case for all content creators to learn from. This is, again, free advice here for everybody who's in the content game. Look at what is happening and learn from it. There is no free pass to say, in my opinion, this is what happened, because you're stating facts.
Well, and look, this just used to be a societal norm that we didn't accuse people without extreme amount of evidence, right? And now accusations being framed as questions are not only encouraged by our current society, but they're incentivized, they're monetized, and people love it. People are digging it. And that used to be like, again, I've told the story 100 times. I remember growing up and people talking about this in my midst in the 80s and 90s. Like, it's like, look, I'm not going to sit here and entertain an accusation without, proof or evidence. And now that's what we see. Going back, I want to clarify a couple of statements that you made. You said a statement of fact when it comes to an accusation. Does that include clear innuendos? Does that include making statements and then throwing a question mark on the end of it? How do you clarify that? And again, this is something that obviously Candace Owens does a lot. She has everything that she's said. It's innuendo. It's insinuation. But the conclusion that she wants her viewers to come to, you can tell by the chat. And we even saw in that lawsuit where, they're actually posting comments that make that very clear. How do you differentiate that? Or is there a differentiation between those two things?
There is. So it all comes down to what a reasonable listener would think. And the reasonable listener standard includes the context, okay? Where the statement's being made. It's being made online on a podcast. Who is making the statement? A political commentator who has millions of followers, who's taken seriously. But Candace Owens is not a host of SNL, right? I mean, we all agree, whether you like her or not. You don't have to agree with her to agree with that. What was her former job? What was her former and current credibility? These are all things that get framed into the reasonable listener or viewer's perspective. That's what courts are going to look at. That's what gets argued in motions when you move to dismiss. And after discovery, we get to piece this puzzle together of, hey, you know what? A reasonable listener is going to actually believe this because the person is framing it, even though they're leaving a question mark, we're reading it as a period or an exclamation point. The question mark, the hypothetical question mark, doesn't mean question mark in today's world. You can lead people down the path of saying a false statement of fact with the question mark. That is ultimately for a jury to decide how it's framed and whether it conveys the meaning that was intended. So plaintiffs will argue, like Brian Harpole, let's just get into it. He's going to argue, you know what? I know Candace Owens is going to argue that she didn't you know, when she said, is Brian Harpole responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk? Because isn't it possible that he was there on the day and that he was seen by this guy Snow? That's a question. How a reasonable reader or listener hears that is what makes all the difference in the world.
And
so
then throwing in the context of demanding an alibi from him to prove his innocence, I think that gets a little wild. The other question I had for you is, what happens when an award exceeds the worth of the defendant? So, for instance, I've read somewhere where, you know, this Ryan Upchurch is worth $3 or $4 million. He now has an award that he has a penalty of $18 million. Clearly, they're not going to get that out of him. How does that work exactly?
So two things. Number one, there is a collection phase. So once the judgment is entered, let's assume for a second Ryan Upchurch, his defense lawyers decide there's no appealable issue. By the way, I'm sure there will be an attempt at an appeal. Let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say they weigh the pros and cons, and they decide that, you know what, we're not going to appeal, but we're going to pick up the phone and call plaintiff's counsel and say, look, I know you got an $18 million judgment, but my client doesn't have anywhere near that in assets. And frankly, his YouTube money is mostly in sponsorships and it's dwindled down. So the most that we have that's collectible is $200,000 in a checking account. He's got a few AP watches. He's got a Porsche. And he lives in an apartment in a high-rise condo, and we've got a bunch of expensive recording equipment. So what do you want to do? At that point, plaintiffs have an option. They could try to chase this guy for 10 years, 20 years, or however long it takes, with interest on the judgment accruing at the statutory rate, okay? Or they could say, I want to get paid as much as I can get paid now because it's going to cost money to chase this guy.
Gotcha.
We see a mix of those things happen. That's what happened with CNN. When Zachary Young won that multi-million-dollar jury verdict against CNN where he proved actual malice. We don't know what the settlement was, but it was going into the punitive phase. That's the phase of this case that played out in the Upchurch case. When that was happening, CNN cut a check or made a settlement. We don't know how much it is. So number one thing for people to understand is there's an opportunity for the plaintiffs and defense to come to an agreement regardless of what the judgment was at trial, right? That could happen. It's usually a smart thing to do. The second thing that could happen is defense says, we're not writing a check for anything, come get it. And when you play dirty and move assets around and move money around, courts can actually make you undo that. So it's not a prudent thing to do, but we don't know how collectible he is. So yes, I mean, collectability is a problem. We don't know if he has insurance coverage, if this case was indemnified through, again, people who are content creators who are smart can have policies that cover liability, but it's probably not an $18 million liability policy. So filing bankruptcy is interesting because I've had judgments against, our firm has had judgments against high net worth people who then file bankruptcy. And you can actually contest the bankruptcy because it's an intentional tort. It's like punching somebody in the face, breaking their nose, causing a concussion, giving them TBI, and then filing bankruptcy and saying, I don't have $150,000 to pay your bills. It's an intentional tort. You can actually push them to avoid bankruptcy on that amount. In other words, the judge can say, we'll give you bankruptcy other than the intentional tort damages. So bankruptcy is not always an option. Usually it's not with these kinds of cases. So I don't know how well this Ryan Upchurch dude is doing financially. I have no idea. I'm sure people who are sleuthy could try to figure out a general idea of how much he makes.
Interesting. Yeah. So going back into this, Mr. Upchurch had a loyal following of viewers who refer themselves as Creek Squad. Upchurch directed the Creek Squad to search for Kiely Rodni's vehicle and posted Google Earth images of Daniel Rodney's former home, falsely stated that he had found Kiely's car there. While generating hundreds of thousands of views on his video relating to Kiely Rodney's disappearance, several Creek Squad members made outlandish videos of their own. In one of these videos, Julio speculated that Rodney Robertson was performing child sacrifices at the lodge as part of a religious cult. David Robinson and Daniel Rodney have each experienced extreme emotional stress attributed to Upchurch postings, compounding their already profound grief at the tragic loss of their granddaughter and daughter. The lawsuit seeks to hold Upchurch accountable for his tortious actions and intentional misconduct, as outlined below. David Robertson is a citizen and resident of California. So is Daniel Rodney. Ryan Upchurch is a citizen of Tennessee that resides in the Middle District of Tennessee. The court jurisdiction, we also saw this. So this is essentially a federal case because it now exceeds $75,000. Is that correct, Raees?
Yeah, you have diversity, which means there's no common ground between the plaintiffs and defendants. And because there's interstate commerce, meaning the use of the internet, and the reach is nationwide, and you have damages that are alleged to be over 75,000. So that's why it's in federal court.
Got it. Ryan Upchurch began posting about Kylie Rodney on YouTube on August 13th. At this time, the whereabouts of Kylie Rodney were unknown. In these videos, Upchurch offered outlandish theories of the truth of what happened to Kylie Rodney. Upchurch initially theorized that this person named Ronnie, who was a caller to a YouTube show called YouTuber Iced Mel, was a red herring and made-up character. I read this earlier. He said, dude, be careful. You can get sued for slander. Obviously, he said, you can slander these nuts. It goes on. I don't know if there's a particular point in this that you'd like to hit. This is about where I was able to pretty much stopped, I think, reading it before the show. But this was Kylie Rodney, and she was obviously found almost a month later in her vehicle.
So go back to the date of that, if you wouldn't mind. The reason why, this is great. The reason why this is in the complaint, can you go scroll down to where in the screen, in that image you just showed of Kylie, it says identity. Yeah, right here. Identity of Kylie Rodney confirmed. Look at the italicized language. Image uploaded by Placer County Sheriff's Department on August 23rd, 2022.
Yeah.
Do you know why that's material? Why that's important? The reason it's important,
a long time.
Well, the reason it's important is if you are a content creator theorizing that she was a fake person or that she was someone else that she was not, the identity was confirmed. Now, I don't know how they confirmed her identity other than they pulled her body, right? This is not a body that was decomposed through fire or burned. It was pulled out of the water.
Right.
And while moisture decomposes bodies more rapidly than dryness does, it was not, at least my understanding, completely decomposed. In other words, and you have dental records, and I don't know how else they identified, but you have a hit. Obviously, it's her car. They probably checked other things. They verified it's her. If you are a YouTuber who has conspiracy theory saying that she was non-existent person and her family was running a GoFundMe scam, you better change your theory based on that announcement. Why? What's your basis now? You actually have facts.
Wait. Hold on. Because can't you just write off, like, I don't know, let's say you have a charging document and you have evidence listed in there. Don't you just get to write that off and call that Fed slop and say, no, I don't accept these as facts, and then continue to slander people?
So once again, you criticizing a government investigation, like a police investigation here, is fair game. So if you say, hey, you know what? Tennessee PD or whoever, PD pulled the body, and I know they said that they used dental records, but I'm looking at the dental records and there's some discrepancy in the dental records. That's legit.
Yep.
But if you say, I know they pulled a body, I know there was a DNA match, because think about it. You have her hair from a brush at home. If they really were concerned, they could test her DNA. But you know what? I'm going to disregard that that's her. I really think that her parents planted evidence, dropped the car in the lake, and are raising millions of dollars in a GoFundMe, because that's my factual narrative. You don't get to create the facts. And again, a jury agrees with me on that. to the tune of $18 million. So where the line is drawn, and I want to be very clear on this, when you have a factual record that is developed, we can all agree that the sky during the day on an average day is somewhere between a tinge of gray with blue to blue and navy blue. But if your argument is that the sky is, I don't know, pick a color, Gary.
Purple.
Let's exclude sunrise and sunset. Let's say it's middle of the day, it's noon, and you're like, no, it's magenta, it's purple, and or it's violet, and those are my facts, that's my reality. You're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, those are factual statements. You can debate the shade of gray and blue and when the sun rises and sunsets, but you can't reinvent the facts. And I'm glad that this verdict happened when it did, because there has to be a message to people who have, you have a responsibility when you have that many followers. And I don't care what people's political views are, red, blue, gray, green, in between. When you're that big, this guy had 3 million subscribers. When you are that big, you have a responsibility. Now, something else is critical, Gary. The jury got to hear evidence that Ryan Upchurch's followers, that he ramped them up to harass the family. Like, come on. This is a family that's grieving over the loss of their daughter who just died, drowned, no less. And you're telling people, now, I don't want to say he told them to do this, but the allegation in the complaint is he basically pointed them to where the family lives and said, you know, let's show them who's boss, kind of a thing. And his weirdo followers are now harassing the family. I think, was it grandpa or maybe dad or somebody owned a business? I think it was a restaurant. And they started leaving all these fake reviews.
Yeah.
And it's alleged in the complaint. Yeah.
Yep. I believe it was the grandfather.
So just imagine how horrendous that is. Your granddaughter drowned in a horrendous local accident. Okay. Never mind that she was intoxicated or on drugs or whatever her circumstances were. It's still a hard pill to swallow for the family. And you're now sending people to the home or to the business to harass. And that's dog shit, man. Oh my God. This case should have never gone to trial, Gary. If I was the defense lawyer and I lost that motion to dismiss, I would have settled this case.
Yeah. Well, and even here it says on August 22nd, the day after Kylie Rodney's body was found, Upchurch posted a video which appeared to express his condolences to Kylie's mom, Kylie's family, and Kylie's friends. This is upon the information and belief Upchurch was aware on August 22nd that the authorities had stated that they had recovered a body that was more than likely Kylie Rodney. In the same video, Upchurch criticized other YouTubers for capitalizing on Kylie Rodney's case to promote themselves. 2 days later, Upchurch uploaded a video promoting his own music. After Kylie Rodney's body is found, her identity is confirmed. Upchurch publicly claims Kylie Rodney is a bullshit person. Her family is not real. Her death is a scam to raise money on GoFundMe. And he, again, do you realize that you can be a millionaire on GoFundMe? Basically, further, essentially trying to solidify the fact that they are, pulling a scam, which
this is the hard part. This is where, listen, criticize the investigation. Criticize, I don't know if she was drunk. I think she was intoxicated. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but let's just say she was. Criticize underage drinking or DUI. That's legitimate. But now you're talking about the family running a scam or questioning, is it a scam? When they recovered a body. I mean, it's sensationalism that should not be rewarded, right?
Yeah. Upchurch, again, he's running his own investigation. He posted a Google Earth recording purporting to locate Daniel Rodney's home.
Horrible.
So he's zooming in on this pixelated image and saying, this is another picture of Kylie's CRV. So again, and we see this a lot of parallels here where people are taking information that is subjective and interpreting it in the worst possible way to point guilt in the direction of another person. Kylie Rodney is not Kylie Rodney. Kylie Rodney is Callie Ross. Callie Ross' dad is fake Kylie Rodney's grandpa.
But by the way, on that fact, this poor girl, Callie Ross, if I understand the facts correctly, is a real person. She started getting harassed. The police knocked on her door. And I mean, can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine.
That's another level of harassment when you entangle people into somebody who died saying it was fake or you're running a scam.
Yeah. Kylie's grandpa. Here again is talking more about Kylie Rodney's some woman named Callie Ross. Video coming in an hour. Specifically, Upchurch stated, I would not say this unless I was 100% confident. Kylie Rodney is not real. Her grandfather is not real. Her dad is not real. Her mom is not real. All the pictures and videos you're seeing of Kylie Rodney person are actual pictures and videos from someone else. And, you know, the
Wow.
part of the crazy part of this and how this also relates to Candace Owens and Erica Kirk in the Charlie Kirk case is you're convinced you have this person that has gained the trust of an audience. And now they're saying, I have evidence that not only are the parents clearly scamming you, but also this also implicates law enforcement. It implicates the idea that we can't trust basic evidence or anything else. And I'm sure there are cases out there, maybe you've seen cases where there are officials that will, you know, attempt to press charges, will use evidence that's not legitimate. But, you know, this idea where you have this multi-agency and hundreds of people involved, especially with the Charlie Kirk case. In this case, I'm sure there's at least dozens of people involved that are creating this, the optics that, you know, the person they pulled out of the river or out of this lake is not the person that they are saying it is. And this is like all some big conspiracy. It's fun. It's exciting. And then you have a person saying, I am 100% sure I have the evidence, which there's a lot of people out there that feel like that Candace is 100% sure. And she brings receipts saying that Erica Kirk is involved in the death of Charlie Kirk. And, you know, you were talking earlier, Raees, when you were kind of laying out the picture of the courtroom and the jury. What I was thinking that whole time is, as the jury is seeing the video of Charlie Kirk murdered, and you have Erica Kirk over there, I'm sure she'll be distraught as they're going through all this stuff. And then they present all the evidence that they have and the dates they had it on, but yet we're still going with this idea that the French Foreign Legion, Israel, this person, that person, and then we circle back to Erica Kirk was at Fort Huachuca, and they're planning, along with Brian Harpool, that they're planning the assassination with the U.S. military. And then that episode is predicated by what I'm getting ready to show you. After this video, the U.S. military is going to have no choice but to come out and admit that they were involved in the death of Charlie Kirk. And of course, throughout that video, you're saying that Brian Harpool is involved in this and Erica Kirk is involved in this. I feel, again, you tell me if I'm mischaracterizing any of this, but in my mind, it sure looks bad.
I think the public sentiment, and again, let me try to be as objective as possible.
Sure.
Let's say we have a truly neutral jury in Tennessee where this trial would take place, the Candace Owens case.
Yep.
Are they going to believe that Candace was stating her opinion based on disclosed facts? Or are they going to believe that Candace knew what she was saying was outlandish, and so outlandish that she knew it was false, meaning actual malice. So the question that the jury is going to have to answer is that. And again, I juxtaposition this case, the Upchurch case, with Candace's case. And granted, you know, there's an important distinguishing point here, Gary, which is that Candace is certainly a public figure. She's also a content publisher. So Harpole is going to have to prove actual malice. I don't think that's up for debate. In this case that we saw in Tennessee with Upchurch, there was no actual malice standard required. Or at least to the extent that it was required, it was certainly shown. I don't think that Candace Owens for a second is going to get a pass by the jury. And because this is jury question, I don't know. Gary, do you think they're going to be sympathetic?
I sure don't see that. And again, I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can be. I think once they see it laid out, especially if people, hopefully these are 12 objective people and they don't know that much about the case. And I think as that's laid out to them within the constraints of a courtroom, I sure don't think that they're going to be sympathetic with her at all. Because even the people, this is one of the things that I've talked about, the reason that some of these people believe Candace Owens is she's been able to incrementally condition them and indoctrinate them. I've said this lots of times where I think some of these people that are all in on this, that think Erica Kirk is the evilest person in the world and believes that, you know, she was involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. I think if they were able to go back to their September 10th self and saw what their present self was posting online and saying online, I think they'd be disgusted with themselves. But I don't know. I think a reasonable person is going to feel the same way that I do. Like, there's so much evidence that Erica Kirk so much evidence that Tyler Robinson pulled this off. If you want to talk about what happened before, that he was potentially radicalized online, that other people may have known about this. We saw social media posts that were in the LGBTQ community, in the trans community, that were referencing that something was going to happen. I'm all about that. Like, let's figure that out. I think it's very improbable that Lance Twiggs didn't know that this was going to happen, especially when he's clearly engraving bullets. He's taking we know that there are targets that were shot, unshot targets. So like, it's hard for me to believe that his planning process was taking place in a vacuum. And, you know, Lance Twiggs didn't know anything about it, but we also see that he has a history of pretty extreme drug use and maybe even some mental instability. So maybe I don't know, but that's for the prosecution to determine, decide, and present evidence for. But I sure don't think that a reasonable jury is going to be very sympathetic to Candace Owens. So
there was a question asked when I was listening on my drive. And the question, if I recall, was, you know, is there this insanity sort of defense, right?
Yeah.
Am I right that somebody asked about that?
Yeah. That's
it's an interesting. It's a very, very interesting question, right? Because in a criminal case, we know that guilty but insane can be an exception, and you'd have to prove insanity. And even in Arizona, actually, when I was an intern in law school, I worked at the Attorney General's office in the Health and Education Division. I got to go to these hearings where somebody chopped their dad's head off with a kitchen knife, and they pled insanity, and they're not criminally convicted. They're civilly committed. And I'm sitting in this, what's like a administrative courtroom, watching this guy testify that, Your Honor, I've been taking my medication and I should be let out in the public. And I'm like, I am one step away from having some maniac standing in front of me at the grocery store who could literally slice my throat any minute because he doesn't like my beard or something. My point is this: that doesn't exist in the civil side. With torts, we talked about getting punched in the face when there's a bar fight. Why do drunk people get sued? If you bash somebody's head in against the curb in a drunken fight, you better believe that a jury can return a verdict of $20 million saying that was battery or assault.
Right.
You know, public policy favors giving victims, making them whole. So in a defamation case, is no similar. It's a civil case. There is no insanity sort of plea. The question of, well, do you meet the mental state of recklessness or negligence is really an academic discussion. A jury is going to get to see, look, let's say Candace says, let's say this is totally hypothetical, but let's say Candace and her lawsuit and her defense, I should say, is going really bad. And the defense says, you know what? We're just going to say that she was doing a bunch of drugs and she had a really bad Molly trip. And that inspired this narrative. Hypothetically, in that circumstance, and again, I'm not saying she did this. I'm saying literally it's a hypothetical. So if Candace's lawyers are listening, you know, it's a hypothetical, guys. Can she skirt liability? And the answer is no. There's no precedence for that, at least. I'd love to see it. So yeah, there were some good questions that were being fielded while I was out. So I'm happy to answer any of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely, let me go back to the top here and see if there was any. I think that one definitely came up in our own discussion with Gray Hughes. Those are non-relevant. I asked the class action suit.
But by the way, something that's really, really important, and as you are scrolling through, some people might genuinely take offense to the fact that how does a YouTuber get hit with a $18 million jury verdict for just talking conspiracy or nonsense? And let me tell you some of the evidence that comes out at trial. Evidence at trial comes out that the father of this girl who died, a very tragic death, regardless of how you view whether she was drinking or not, that Daniel Rodney had to go into hiding because his phone number and address were made public by Upchurch. Could you imagine that? Because of the negative attention, he literally had to go into hiding, like he's on the witness protection program or something. The jury got to hear that, is my point, right? Yeah. It's evidence. Significant investments in home security, the psychological treatment and therapy that had to have been that both plaintiffs, grandpa and dad, had to endure, and then the scale and the repetition. This wasn't one bad comment, is my point. Like, people contact me all the time. Raees, I was on a live stream and somebody said I was gay. Can I sue them for defamation? I'm like, no, you probably can't. As far as I know, it's probably true. But I'm joking. But yeah. My point is, this is not an example of like just a crass comment. This is a repeated, what we call a campaign.
Yeah. Jury
got to hear that and said, that's worth an $18 million check. It's evident. Again, this is not hurt feelings. You've heard me say this before on your podcast. You don't sue over hurt feelings. You sue when you have serious, repeated harassment. You can't go in public objectively, not because you're a snowflake, but because you think someone's going to take you out because the followers are crazy. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds familiar. And
very familiar. Well, and going back to what you said, you said Brian Harpole is going to have to meet the bar of malice. And to be clear, again, we don't know how a jury is going to go one way or the other, but you felt that was you felt that Brian Harpole had a really good case for the fact that Candace Owens was actually acting with malice.
Say your question for me again.
Basically, you were talking back about the Brian Harpole case versus Candace Owens. You know, you said the problem is that she's a public figure, so he's going to have to demonstrate that she acted with malice. And as I remember it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, you felt that he had a pretty good case based on the information that we had.
Yeah, I think, and remember, this is in the complaint, there are half a dozen allegations, right? And I'm talking about in Brian Harpole's case. There's a laundry list. We went through 6 categories, right, in our 2.5-hour discussion, and some of them are stronger than others. The one that jumps out to me is the one about whether Harpole was present at Fort Huachuca. Now, there are 2 sides to this. One is, well, I got a guy saying I'm 99% certain, but you also have flight records that say it was impossible. How are we playing that? Did you entertain? Here's the standard. Did you entertain serious doubts? A jury's going to hear that instruction. I'm just saying, that's slippery. Okay.
Well, and when Erica Kirk gave those flight records to Candace 3 days prior to having Mitch Stowan make those allegations, and she never brought that up, is that a factor in all this?
It's a factor because you have undisclosed facts. And I think of the CNN case. Had CNN published that, hey, we have evidence that's questionable that Zachary Young may not have been running a trafficking ring or trafficking people out of Afghanistan, like we thought, that would have saved the whole case. If I'm the lawyers for the media company, I'm saying, say something. Just say something to tell people that there's a balance, that, hey, you know what? This point could be wrong. You don't have to say we could be wrong. You know, if you have, everybody's got a big ego when you're in big media. Fine, don't say we could be wrong. But say, you know what? This thing that I'm saying is black. There's a chance that there may be some white on it. There's a chance. There's a very strong chance. But I want you to believe this is black. I want you to believe this is black. I'm going to tell you all the reasons it's black. But I'm just letting you know there's a good scientific probability that this is white. Even that would be acceptable. And CNN could have saved themselves. Instead, they got hit with punitive damages, or almost got hit with punitive damages, but multi-million-dollar jury verdict. In a similar vein, every content creator, I don't care if it's Candace, I don't care if it's Upchurch, guys, state the facts.
Yeah.
You are so much more credible when you say the facts, because the facts will come out. Because guess what? The other side might have them.
Yeah.
Just say the facts and then spin your narrative. I'm not, and I've said this before. I have a love-hate relationship with people like Alex Jones, because on one hand, I want people to hear things. I have my own views and opinions on politics and world events.
Sure.
And sometimes the craziest things turn out to be true. Epstein files have proven this. If you had told me, Gary, 5 years ago, there's a dude that lives in a very expensive part of Manhattan that owns this island that flies politicians there, and this stuff happens, I would have been like, get the hell out of here. No, there's no way you can run an extortion ring like that. Or, hey, you're going to find all this stuff on Hunter Biden's laptop and these pictures of him with the hooker and cocaine. I'm like, come on, really? Do you think, how sloppy can you be if you're the son of the president? I'm just stating, again, I'm not being red or blue here. I'm just stating facts.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with people who have a cult following is that problem, is you have blinders. You have blinders. And I'm going the direction you're pointing me. It's great to sell t-shirts, Gary. It's great to sell subscriptions for YouTube. It's great. Don't get me wrong. I would love to create a cult where people can just send me free money and you can bow to me and believe everything I say. But the opposite's also true, because if you have crazy followers, it's going to create an echo chamber. And there is responsibility for that. And we're seeing it in the Upchurch case where there was a presentation of evidence at trial that, you know what, this guy's followers were so crazy and people believed that he was speaking the truth. Somebody asked in the comments, well, don't you get a free pass for hyperbole? That's the problem, though. Nobody believes it's hyperbole. You can't come out and say, I was being hyperbolic and satirical. This is an SNL skit, guys. Pull the curtains closed. The jury has to make that decision. You and I don't make that decision. If I wanted you, Gary, on this show, for your listeners to think that don't take anything that Raees is saying seriously, I would not present myself as a lawyer who practices defamation, who's been in practice for 16 years, who has a presence online. I would wear a clown costume and squeeze my nose every 5 seconds and smoke a joint on show. That's what I would do. So when you act in a way that you want people to believe you're being rational, and then you say, oh, I was just joking, or don't really believe this. It doesn't work that way. And again, I have this conversation every day with content creators. I'm like, did you say this as a fact? Or did you actually express an opinion? And today, more likely than not, people are expressing camouflaged facts, and they just think that they get a free pass. It's just not how the Constitution works.
So you're saying that if you constantly present what you're doing as an investigation and it is built on anonymous sources and unverifiable facts with a lot of allegations and accusations thrown in, you're probably not on solid ground.
Again, yeah. My quick reaction to that is just, you don't get to decide whether you're reporting an investigation at a certain volume of information that's coming out. You don't get to decide whether people believe you are investigating or spitting facts. People are going to decide that for you, and that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah. Project Constitution, Colin, you booger-eating loser. Hi, Boo-Boo. You're going to talk about the fraud at TPUSA. We just exposed today their Club of America chapters. You didn't expose any fraud. I saw it. It's trash like everything else you report, dude. So no, I'm not going to talk about it. I live in South Carolina, watch every second of the trial. His testimony sunk him. Hubris gets them every time.
Juries don't like egotistical people. I'll tell you that.
Oh, man. Somebody I know is in trouble. Why would the U.S. government get their night vision supplies from an obscure YouTuber? Why wouldn't they go to the manufacturer? Well, Colin, if you knew anything about government contracting, and this contract started months ahead of time, they do set-asides and small acquisition purchases from small businesses all the time. As a matter of fact, there's legislation that requires them to. So once again, neither you nor your cult leader have any command of the facts, and you just don't know what you're talking about.
I've actually represented people who contract with the government. That's true. And they have a certain requirement that a certain percentage of their bids even come from even diverse backgrounds. And they don't, otherwise the big guys would always get all the contracts.
Yeah.
And that's just not how it works.
If your business is certified as a small disabled veteran-owned business.
Correct.
That happens, Colin, but you guys don't know what you're talking about. Why don't you tell everyone, Gary, why you were in Montana at the same time Jack Hibbs and Rick Cutler a month after Charlie's death? I was not in Montana. This is...
Come on, Gary, tell them.
The shit you guys make up. I wasn't in Montana a month after Jack Hibbs or Rick Cutler. Matter of fact, I haven't been to Montana. The last time I drove or was in Montana was when I moved here. We drove through Montana from Washington State, and that was in 2011. So there you go. Once again, Colin, you got all your facts together. Project Constitution, I heard you're gross and obese, but identify as a skinny. Does that mean you're trans slender? I just want to throw this up on the board because it's fun. And if I had the video, Colin, of you sitting on video live eating your boogers, I would actually show that. But I do want to show this for everybody that doesn't know. Let me show you who Colin from Project Constitution is real quick. and because it's always fun to know exactly who you're talking to. The biggest grifter has been hit with 2 cease and desist. But this, folks, is Project Constitution, who has been convicted of theft. He's been convicted of selling fake drugs. And the reason he got caught selling fake drugs is when the person didn't pay him and it took off with the fake drugs, he called the cops and reported a robbery. This is who we're dealing with right here. So
wait, that's hilarious, actually.
The level of retardation that we have in the comments. But I do thank you for the $30 or whatever that you paid. Thank you.
That is absolutely hilarious. You know, I hear these stories about people hiring hookers in Las Vegas who then they get robbed. Is that kind of the same thing?
Yeah. So yeah, he got robbed for selling fake drugs. So he called the cops. He got charged with a false report. He got charged, and ultimately, I don't know if he's convicted of that. I did see that at least one time he was convicted of theft. So now, instead of selling fake drugs or stealing things, what he's doing now is he's taking your money and stealing your money with lies, and that's what he does on his X channel.
At least his wig is cool.
I wish it was a wig. I really
not
do.
A wig? It's not a wig.
No, that's not a wig. It should be a wig. It should be a wig.
Wow.
Here's a kind of a question. We'll just leave that up there because it's fun. Would Owen's tone of voice, demeanor, mannerisms, facial expressions, and how she says things all matter? I'll let you answer that.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I think so. Because this is video content. We do video content because we get to see everything and make a decision on what we're seeing. Like I said before, if I was wearing a red clown nose and squeezed it every 5 seconds, people would take me less seriously. Tone matters. The visual matters. Anybody who's a comedian knows that the gesturing makes a difference as the words coming out of your mouth impact the audience, how you deliver the message. Context matters. That principle in defamation law is as old as, defamation law is. Context matters. And so, yeah, I think if I'm watching a video clip that's a minute long that I'm playing to the jury, I'm saying, here's Candace Owens, for example, just like Upchurch. Here's a video of this person who knew that this was a real person who drowned in a lake. Here's a video clip of him saying, buy my shirts, subscribe to my channel, and we're going to talk about on tomorrow on how this is not a real person and that the real person is somewhere else and the family's scamming. And I'm being dead serious. You're not giving the jury much to go off of there other than that you're being serious. So yeah, I would say demeanor matters. I'd say demeanor matters.
Yeah. I'm so sick of people pulling the free speech First Amendment card when it comes to things that aren't covered by the First Amendment. And I do think that people have an overly broad definition of what they think the First Amendment applies to. And there's reasons that we have laws in the book that exclude slander, defamation, libel, and anything else you want to add to that, Raees?
I'm just laughing because when I saw the image of what's his name? Project Constipation.
Yep.
Project Constipation. When I saw his image, like, I'm trying to hold back my laugh, but I just can't, dude. I wear myself on the sleeve. I kept thinking to myself, ginger lives matter. Like it and then I'm like, Gary's ginger too. Maybe I shouldn't say it. I'm sorry. I had to
clarify that. I think he's got some light changing his hair color, but his hair is brown. He's not in the ginger family.
Okay. All right. That's
not evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
I'll accept that. What was the question?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. We've kind of covered it. Here's a good question though. We'll just leave Colin Campbell right up there. I really respect Raees' friendly personality. He's very passionate and knowledgeable about what he does. You can tell by the way he explains the process. Just a fantastic guest. I agree. You got the Paramount seal of approval. So there's that.
I appreciate that. It was very kind.
Next to Candace, also on my mind, those covering the Guthrie case Guthrie disappearance should be careful too. A lot of theories.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So I actually did it. There's a video pinned. I think it's on my Instagram profile. So if anyone wants to view it and comment on it or ask me questions on it, I certainly, I got it was a popular video that I did. I think it got close to 800,000 views and lots of shares and likes on the Guthrie case, right? And that happened close to home. It was in Tucson, Arizona. And very, very crazy, chilling case. But, look, there's facts about the investigation that you can criticize. Like the PD and the FBI did not get along.
Yeah.
And you can criticize the PD and you can say, did you guys not consider evidence? And you can criticize the FBI. You can criticize, guys, why wasn't this escalated as quickly as it could have been? And that this was a junior high school investigation. You can do that. If you then said, well, look, I think this whole thing is a hoax. I better have a good sort of basis for my opinion. Even that, I'm going in swings here, right?
Sure.
But then when you put specific people's names on the list of people being responsible and saying that you have facts to suggest why they are responsible, that is a totally different thing. Okay. In my video, I kind of got into, is there a connection to the Clintons? Right. And that's about as conspiracy as I got. But I disclosed my factual basis for it. And I say that's my opinion. I'm not saying Hillary drove up and kidnapped her, grandma, but there are connections between the Guthrie daughter, who is a broadcaster, her husband. And I'll leave it at that. You can watch the video. It's a short clip. It's 90 seconds. But my point is, I think that Guthrie is whoever brought that up is made a great analogy for something that you should really pay attention to.
No, that is great. And folks, by the way, also make sure you guys like, subscribe. And of course, we really appreciate if you become a member and help us out that way and support the channel that way. But also down in the description below are the links to all of the Beard Lawyer social media. Make sure you go give him a follow. Obviously, just a great guest. We love having him on. And I'm actually glad we found a reason to bring him back. It was 9 days ago. It was 9 days ago that you were on, by the way.
Wow. Somebody commented that apparently Project Constitution's a little butthurt that he said it's defamation, Gary. I was buying the drugs and got robbed, actually. The news reported it incorrectly. Don't worry, though. I'm not a snowflake like you. So I just thought I'd read that because apparently he was trying to buy drugs. Allegedly, this is his story, that he paid $10 to tell you on air. By the way.
Well, don't worry, Project Constitution, Colin Campbell. I have your full background check, so I have what the
There you go. There you go. That's such a bizarre fact to clarify. I'm dying over here, man. I'm dying over here.
If someone sues for defamation which affected business reputation, can they include tortious interference or separate suit?
Yeah, tortious interference. So tortious interference, we couple those claims frequently with defamation when we're talking about business owners, right? So if somebody leaves a series of false reviews on your restaurant, and you prove that it impacted customers, this happens, right? If you're a small business owner, you have a claim most likely for some sort of tortious interference in addition to defamation.
Lynn, my fellow Michigander from way back, there's no effing way I will sleep to know a window licker outspent anyone else in our tribe. Thanks for the cash, but nice try, son. Go Detroit Tigers. All right. Appalachian America, thank you for becoming a member. We appreciate you. Gary, not saying that this would happen, but what if Candace targeted you on her show to the point where her followers harass you and your family? Would you sue? Well, I don't know. Maybe like if she says that she has found that the government purchased $180,000 worth of gear from us and then insinuates that I am a bought and paid for government agent to cover for the conspiracy. I mean, that's what she's doing. And yeah, we are getting harassed and, all those things. I don't know if that reaches the level of defamation, but she's basically implicating us into the conspiracy to kill Charlie Kirk at this point.
Maybe we have a separate conversation about that. That sounds
Let's
interesting.
let's have a separate conversation. I think that'd be a great idea. Yeah. When the facts damage someone's reputation or business, it's not defamation. Many facts cause concern for what are being told about the Charlie Kirk case. Well, that's true, Zach. But your version, as we discussed in our debate, your version of what are facts, and I don't know, the rest of the world, the reasonable among us, are very different. But talk on that if you want to, Raees.
Yeah, well, here's the part where he's wrong, and here's the part where he's right. If facts damage your reputation, let's take Project Constitution, excuse me. Let's take his example. He was buying drugs, and he said, you're defaming him. And he said, you know, I was buying the drugs, and actually I got robbed. Well, let's just say you got the facts wrong, Gary. Did you injure his reputation as a result of it? Well, if his reputation is already bad and it couldn't get much worse, I'm not sure that there's anything there that he could do. Or for the fact that now people know that he was actually trying to buy drugs and got robbed. Well, those are bad facts and they could be injurious to his reputation. That's not defamation. The difference, just to position, you know, the Upchurch, the Rodney and the Upchurch case to the Harpool and the Candace Owens case. Let me put them next to each other for a second, because this turns out to be important. The Harpool narrative allegation. Remember, we don't have discovery. This is all allegations. Upchurch, we actually went to trial. Okay. But when we put those cases next to each other, the allegations in the narrative against Candace Owens is much more severe, in my opinion, than what Upchurch was found responsible for to the tune of 18 million. In my opinion. Why do I say that? Because Candace Owens allegedly accused Brian Harpool, Charlie Kirk's former security provider, of foreknowledge, not just that participation, but foreknowledge. Remember, she said, correct me if I'm wrong, that Brian knew that Charlie was not going to need security for a future event because he knew he wouldn't survive. Remember that?
Yep.
So the complaint alleges in Harpool versus Owens repeatedly that Owens was tied, that Harpool was tied to Fort Huachuca and that meeting, and suggested that Harpool was involved in that criminal activity, conspiracy to commit murder and murder. To make the two Upchurch and Candace Owens cases analogous, that would be like saying the parents pushed their daughter's car into the lake, right? Now, just remember, jury returned an $18 million verdict. Interesting.
It is interesting, to say the least. And I do have, let me see, we'll pull that. It's hard for me to believe that he actually fits on that screen. But I do have the Harpool Candace Owens.
You have a wide screen, Gary.
I do have a really wide screen.
Yeah,
and
you have cinema.
I think it's squishing him in. I think we're taking about 100 pounds off of him at the moment right now. So
it's panoramic view.
That's right. I understand that Candace Owens is still under NDA with TPUSA through 12/26. I think it was through 12/25, not 12/26, as I understand that case. Which they did send her a cease and desist and cited that NDA, TPUSA, to file under the NDA or regular defamation case. So in the defamation case, I guess obviously not with Brian Harpool. Would that play a role at all in Brian Harpool's defamation case against her?
So I don't know enough about what's in the NDA to give you an opinion exactly, but let me say this in general terms. If there's an NDA and a party is looking for discovery that is the subject of an NDA, most NDAs actually have a carve out. I write them all the time for people that says you may disclose, or you may have a duty to disclose, if you're subpoenaed by a court to testify honestly about something you saw or heard. So as it turns out, the NDA may protect to a degree. It may not protect much at all when you're that deep in litigation. And further, there are other protections that can be taken. I've been in cases like trade secret cases, right? Remember, like you're fighting over the formula of KFC. Those are legitimate lawsuits. So how do you control what gets out? Well, the judge says you can produce it to me what's called in camera, away from the eyeballs of everyone else, even outside of all the lawyers, and I will make a determination on an issue. So if something is that secretive, it could reach that level of protection. Again, courts are pretty well equipped to deal with this kind of stuff.
Now, if TPUSA sues Candace, and obviously does, and I'm sure that's dependent on the language of the NDA, they sue Candace for defamation. I'm sure that would be presented, and maybe that wouldn't look good to me if I was on the jury. I'm like, oh, you violated your NDA and you were defaming them. How would that possibly play out?
Yeah, so breach of NDA cases are way easier than defamation. So if I had to pick the two, because I don't need to prove reputational harm, I can just say, here's what you said, here's the agreement. If it's unambiguous, you put the two together, and 2 + 2 is 4. That is way easier. So those are great, tend to be good claims. So if TP has a claim like that, fantastic, go for it.
And could they sue on those two separate issues?
They can. So you mean defamation and breach of confidentiality? They can bring the same. They can bring the same in the same lawsuit, both claims. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Good. Booger Eater uses LLMs to generate a lot of his Twitter posts, which has dead giveaways proving he has no writing skills. That's true. Is Zachary C paying money to Gary to try to tell a defamation lawyer what defamation is? These are grifters are spending too much time in echo chambers. I agree with that. That's defamation, Gary. I was buying the drugs and got robbed. Actually, the news reported it incorrectly. Don't worry though.
I can't believe I just read that.
Yeah. Thanks for that important clarification.
I really appreciate that clarification. Yes.
Yeah. And I think you have the issue with the reporting body, not me. Showed up my timeline. Been watching for 5 days. Your commentary makes sense. You check up on creators and videos, and you answer a pointed question. Upchuck is fucking sycophant and is high right now, so his answer will come slow. Owens equals evil. I couldn't agree with you more. Allegedly, she's evil. Allegedly. Zachary thinks he knows more about defamation than a defamation lawyer. When you grow a cult following on X, you get an inflated sense of intelligence. See debate with Andrew Wilson for a reality check. Yeah.
By the way, somebody asked about, I'm sorry if this is a comment that you're going to be juggling through here in a second, but somebody asked a clarifying question on the NDA. So if you sign an NDA and a court order, you would get a subpoena basically, right? Let's say you're a third party. I'm giving you 2 examples now. Let's say person A is suing person B, and person A says, you know what, this person C signed an NDA. And I know they signed an NDA, but they have knowledge of something I need in my case. So they issue a subpoena. This is how this would work. The NDAs typically have a carve out that say, in order to be enforceable, like you may be compelled by a court to testify. The court order supersedes the contract to stay confidential. Okay. So you can't get sued for testifying truthfully, despite the fact that you signed an NDA. Somebody had a question about that. You can't, because it's a court compelled order. That would be silly, right? If you could get sued for being forced to testify in court for violating your NDA.
Well, I've heard a lot of people ask this question. Obviously, for these civil cases, the Fifth Amendment doesn't apply. Candace Owens can't refuse to testify or get deposed in any way, right?
Correct. If you're a defendant, good luck trying to dodge, particularly if you're getting sued in your individual capacity, good luck trying to avoid a deposition. Plus, she's a principal of her company who's also a defendant. So she actually may get deposed 2 times in this case separately. Once in her individual capacity, and then second as a corporate officer with knowledge of production practices and production due diligence.
One question before I get to my kind of final question, the real crux of all this is, well, I'll hit that one first. You know, we've talked a lot about the parallels between these 2 court cases. you know, I know there's been a lot of talk about the anti-SLAPP laws in Tennessee, and a lot of people were saying Brian Harpole is going to have a real uphill battle. Like, does this set a precedent? Does this change anything in your calculus for what may or may not happen with Candace Owens?
It's a great question. In the Upchurch case, which was filed in federal court, also, I believe, right? We just looked at the complaint. The defendants applied, I should say the plaintiffs applied, California substantive law on a motion to dismiss. And in fact, the standards that were applied, somebody can fact check me on this, the standards that were applied, I believe, was the California standards for defamation, which, by the way, are more difficult than Tennessee's. And Upchurch and his amazing plaintiffs' lawyers won that case. The reason that matters is because California has much stronger defamation standards, meaning pro-defense. Tennessee is several steps down compared to California when it comes to how much protection media defendants get. California is one of the strongest in the country. Upchurch's defense lawyers did the right thing, I think, and tried to file a motion to dismiss, saying this is opinion, there's protection under the First Amendment. They did not file an anti-SLAPP. And not to get into technical nuances here, but there's a question in federal court whether they could do it or not. But my point is this. I think on certain claims, certain allegations, that the Tennessee anti-SLAPP, to the extent that Candace brings an anti-SLAPP, I don't see prevailing, because I think the judge who gets to make this decision, Gary, the judge is the gatekeeper on anti-SLAPP. I think the judge is going to say there is sufficient evidence here for a jury to make this decision, that as a matter of law, I think plaintiffs can show, I think Harpole can show that you had the facts, that you knew things from Erica, that you had flight logs, that you disregarded or you questioned yourself, not literally, but at least had enough to justify whether there was conflicting facts and you told one side of the story. I think a judge is going to see that. It's a hard call, again, because what didn't come out in the Upchurch case was the dynamic of Candace being a public figure and also a media defendant. We didn't have that. I think the actual malice standard is going to be at play in Candace's case, but I just think that plaintiff has a pretty good case. And I've said this before, Brian Harpole's lawyers knew that would come, which is why they loaded the complaint with actual malice examples. We counted at least 5 or 6. And they knew that bullet was coming in the chamber, and they completely threw the shield up for it. So I don't know, man. This is pre-discovery, Gary. Again, like a single deposition could change the dynamic of this case. I really believe that. You know, we're sitting here and we're trying to foreshadow pre-discovery. The Upchurch case, we had the benefit of all the discovery. We have the benefit of seeing a trial, how a jury saw the dynamic. Maybe when Candace gets deposed, maybe she's not going to come off as pompous. Maybe she's not going to come off as arrogant in that I know everything. You know, hard to say. If I'm her lawyers, I do not want to get into a deposition.
Well, and the other problem, well, that I see, and you tell me if I'm incorrect, this is, you know, just Gary observing this, not a lawyer. I mean, she's talking about the Fort Huachuca situation as of like yesterday or the day before. You know, when she's bringing me into the case, she's talking about essentially the Fort Huachuca portion of this. So the fact that she's continuing to affirm her belief in what's going on and affirm that she has presented facts and evidence, is that going to negatively affect her?
I said this before, and I'll say it again, and I always believe this is true. When you are getting sued for commentary that you made yesterday, the day before, you don't continue to make the same commentary. That's a general rule of thumb.
Yeah, it's a good one.
To go a little deeper, if you're selling merch, if you're getting sponsored ads, if you are monetizing, a judge and jury are not going to be sympathetic to that. They are not. And so
Now,
I don't know, man.
Is that something that they'll be able to subpoena? Will Brian Harple be able to subpoena how much money that she has essentially made since?
Oh, it's relevant.
Okay.
It's relevant. It's relevant to two things. They're going to object and they're going to say, so Gary, typically, and again, I've defended defamation claims. When plaintiffs try to find out how much my client is making off of social media, I argue that you're only allowed to make income discovery requests, usually when you have a judgment, except when you say that it gets to motive, that Candace, in this case, in your example, is saying what she's saying because she has a financial motivation, and we're going to show you she has a financial motivation. We're going to show you she has a financial bias based on how much she makes. That is a good thing for plaintiffs, Brian Harpole's lawyers, to jump at. I would be going after financial. So I think it will come out in discovery.
There's been a lot of people on social media, some of them claiming to be lawyers. I couldn't confirm, but they're saying this is the worst. And I know you've been practicing defamation cases for a long time. You do it all the time. That's specific to social media. But I've heard so many people that claim to be lawyers saying, "Oh, this is the worst written lawsuit I've just about ever seen." What's your
Get
opinion?
them on your show. I got an idea. Why don't you put a tweet out there?
I will do that. I love it.
And say, if you believe that Brian Harpole's lawsuit is dog shit, come onto the show and we'll have you and then me talk about why we differ on that. And again, I'm not a self-proclaimed Candace hater. You won't see. I love the academic discussion and analysis of the case. I pay attention to all these cases. So this is not a red shirt, blue shirt thing for me, whether people like that or not, and I don't care. But if somebody wants to say that the lawsuit is dog shit in the way it's pled, I could stand behind my position that I think the lawsuit is actually alleged very, very well. I actually think it's alleged very, very well. I think it should be studied. I anticipate that it's going to get amended, by the way, Gary. I think a response is not yet due. I have a feeling Candace's lawyers will file a motion to dismiss. The motion to dismiss is going to be, you haven't alleged sufficiently actual malice. And if they don't bring an anti-slap because of the federal jurisdictional issue, they're going to bring it as a 12b6 motion to dismiss. And they're going to say, this is opinion and it's protected speech. And they can do that even if it's not an anti-slap, okay?
Sure.
And some of the statements may come out. I've said this before. The lawsuit is an aggregate of like 12 statements. Some of the statements are weak. They are. But I don't agree that the entire complaint is dog shit.
Fair enough. The last question I have for you, what do you think? I've been pondering this all day. Like, what do you think the relevance? She sent me this preservation order. What do you think the relevance to her defense is going to be to send me a preservation order to defend her saying Brian Harpole was there? Or is that just a shot across my bow? Is that posturing? What do you think that's about?
Was it an order or was it a letter? Was it an order from the court?
I'll read it to you. I'll pull this sucker right up and we will read it. It's from her lawyer. I can tell you that. Let me find this. Of course, I've had 50 emails come through since. Oh, here we go. Here we go. And I will add this to stage. We got to pull him off. That's not the order. I know you guys thought that was, but that's not it. There we go. Oh, it's
I
coming
see
up.
the complaint. Yep.
Hold on a second. Well, I'm trying to pull it up. You know what? I'm gonna have to download it off the email. Let me just do that real quick, and then
Feel no pressure to share it on your stream. I'm just genuinely curious.
you know what? I'll just read it. I'll just read it real quick. I'll just read it. It's nothing big. It says, dear Mr. Melton, our offices represent Candace Owens LLC, George Tom Inc. collectively in the above referenced defamation lawsuit litigation. Attached is a copy of the complaint. The letter serves as a formal notice that you and your organization must preserve documents, electronically stored information, tangible things that may be relevant to the claims defense in the litigation. The preservation demands includes, without limitations, materials related to any investigation, communications, or activities concerning Brian Harpole, Erica Kirk, Turning Point USA, and any statements, publications, or communications that are alleged to be defamatory or relate to the issue in dispute, including any efforts to investigate, publicize, or otherwise disseminate information about Brian Harpole, Erica Kirk, and Turning Point USA. Duty to preserve, basically preserve any and everything that you can possibly have. Categories of information to be preserved without limiting the scope of your preservation obligations. Please preserve the following categories: emails, letters, text messages, call detail records, calendar, social media posts, documents and files, Dropbox, you name it. Preservation.
Did the letter say that there was an order attached? Did I mishear you, or is it just saying
the order is the lawsuit itself? That's the other thing that's attached. Attached is a copy of the complaint. That's what it is.
Oh, attached is a copy of the complaint. Well, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
Still reading. I mean, look, I'll say this. I'll be the last one to say that third parties who may have relevant evidence should not preserve it. That's certainly not what I would ever say.
Sure.
My question is, what's relevant?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you have to do with the Candace and Harpole lawsuit? I would be very curious. I mean, you're a commentator, and I think people have to be careful because, I'm gonna hold my comment on this until we have a private conversation.
Sounds good. I mean, ultimately, I think she's still, well, you know, that's just speculation. I have no idea. I have no idea what the relevance is. She's in her episode where she talked about it. She lays out this. It doesn't even make sense to me, but basically, you vet bros are conspiring against me to tell you that Mitch Snow, like, I don't even know what the conspiracy is. It's almost like you're trying to trick me into trying this conspiracy of a defamation suit. But we were basically, and then she alleges that like we are threatening her, which we never threatened her. We were like, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And there's people that were involved in this that are completely on her side that were like, hey, don't platform this guy. He's telling you a lie. It doesn't make sense. But yet she lumps us all into that. And I guess we were trying to, it's a conspiracy for defamation, but we were trying to get her to not platform this guy because he was lying to her and lying to people, but somehow we tricked her into a defamation. It doesn't make sense, but I mean, that's kind of par for the course with that alleged psycho. It's my opinion, not a medical one, that she's a little psychotic.
No, that was satirical and hyperbolic.
That's right. Yeah, so that's where we're at with that. Well, listen, folks. Well, I'll just give you the last word. Anything else that you want to add, Raees? Number one, man, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you coming on. I think this it's so educational. There's so much there's so much social media lawyering out there. Everybody's a lawyer. Everybody's watched Law and Order like 4 times, so they know what the real deal is. But I think you bring a lot of truth and clarity to all these situations, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate. And you're a lot of fun to talk to. I mean,
I appreciate it. Listen, this is what I do, and so I'm happy to come and give you my perspective. And I believe that you are trying to be balanced. I don't think you're on any extremity of anything. At least I haven't seen it. I appreciate your commentary, and I'm happy to be on anytime. I mean, just I'll try not to be late. But hey, you know, running a law firm sometimes has its downsides.
Well, I heard lawyers make like at least $30 an hour or something along those lines.
Something like that, maybe $29.50. You know.
Your time is appreciated. If you run a little late, I think we'll survive. You're worth waiting on. Well, listen, folks, hopefully you found this as educational, interesting as I did, and entertaining. And you know, again, luckily we have the opportunity to have Raees on. We really appreciate his time, and hopefully you do as well. We appreciate all your support. Make sure you share this content. I think that's really important so we can get the truth out there. That's what this channel is all about. That's what I'm dedicated to. That's what, you know, if I bend a certain way, it's toward the truth. We want the truth, whatever that truth is. And we appreciate your support. You guys make it all happen. Raees, you don't go anywhere else, but for everybody else, thank you for tuning in tonight. Like, share, subscribe, all the stuff I'm supposed to say as a social media content creator. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.